Welcome back to Chainsaw Slaughter, and before we get into this Vicinal versus Arctic Wolves Demogorgon game, we have a bit of a caster swap. Autumn has left, and we're now joined by Jukies. Hello, Jukies. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing alrighty, and we'll see if Vicinal's Demogorgon killer G-Bot can do alrighty against these Arctic Wolves survivors. What do you think of the build? What do you think of this portal placement? And what do you expect to see in this early game?
So Demogorgon is very much a killer that people have to set up their portals or go for chases, and I think the G-Bot just got both of those happening right now. I think the build is very aggressive for WinCon. I would have imagined to see a bamboozle on the Demogorgon, but we have G-Bot here taking a tag or getting a tag on Solar. Solar's going to play this tile right here by main and this pallet, which is pretty strong, but this is where Barb's Glasses comes into play. And really, there are the hit take coming in. So this is where an issue I see with the build right now is that Agi is great on a map like this, and having Erupt is good as well. But without Bamboozle or without a Forced Penance, people could just take tags against the Demogorgon and run off across the tile. And I believe that Spider does look to have Lucky Break, but G-Bot is whiffing at the pallet, putting his claws on the wood. I don't know if this build is going to be the one that is needed to win, but Vicinal has lots of experience, and here goes G-Bot grabbing Solar out of the locker. That's a pretty fast down, don't you think?
I think the more important part is the fact that Gen does get done right before a pain res token gets used, so we might have a second gen with high progress. Timing, regardless where that chase was, stayed in one spot, the survivors could have worked gens unpressured, but the reset getting found is going to be a bit scary. You have pain res and eruption, you can hold down some space and get some fast pressure onto things. And I think G-Bot is looking, sees a crow fly up. Do they think someone's going for the unhook? But with the hit tank, I think without that hit tank, that is a very fast chase, but with the hit tank, I think it's slowed down enough that G-Bot is still needing to do some work, especially with no NOED as a safety net. It's going to require a little bit of thinking. And they're not placing portals, I think, in this downtime. I think you have a great opportunity to place portals if you want them. I'm a bit surprised they aren't. But when you're camping, you can't do too much productive stuff. And we're going to wait for all of these Katy Perry fans on Arctic Wolves to wait out, skip this stage. Last second pull. They finally get a portal down. And Jukies, what does G-Bot need to do now?
Well, G-Bot needs to find another survivor first of all, and perfect timing to time the portal to go back down to Shack, but then the insta-pull happens. G-Bot needs to find it down and get it quick, but right now, since the insta-pull happened, and unless there's an FTP or a double heal, I think the G-Bot is going to go and tunnel Ace out of the game and make this a very early 3v1. Now, this is an issue I have with strategy all the time. As somebody who does play killer in pubs, which is not the same, one of the first things I look at is resources. When somebody has a bunch of resources on the map, I tend to decide like whether or not it's the decision. Oh my god. G-Bot just going for the shred right there and calling Solar's bluff. But I don't know if it's much of a bluff, as there is a gen that gets done. What I was referring to is that killers seem to tend to not want to break pallets very often or quickly, it seems like, in comp. And I understand that time economy is very precious, but what happens a lot is I see killers tend to have it comes back to bite them in the ass when they have a chase that happens that takes too long. But G-Bot already finds two of the Katy Perry fans right here and gets that dirty tag right there into me after that gen pops. So, time economy aside and all my yapping aside, it looks like G-Bot is in a really good position to get these two downs, possibly all three, and looks like it's heading towards a 4K1, wouldn't you say?
I think if this was a nurse, this is a 4K1 right here, but it is a demo. Your shred isn't that strong, and these survivors, I don't know what the gen progress across the map is. I was surprised these gens didn't fly as fast as they could have with all of the pizzazz happening away from the gens, but I'm a bit curious to see Doesn't sound like there's progress on main gen. Doesn't like to be progress in this. I think because they have this strong 3-gen corner, this might be a 4K1 from where this hook position is, because death locations matter so much. But you have used quite a few portals, not all of them in great spots. You have some decent ones though. There's one behind main, not doing a humongous amount. That one deep all the way across the map. That gen all the way at Shack should be flying. That's the use of the portal, is to scout for that survivor. You see this one here. The other one should be on the gen all the way across the map. Or maybe 99ing it to eat some pain res. But playing a sitting and waiting game once again, the survivors need to be a lot more efficient with this time to letting their teammate rot on the hook. Now Gbot looks to see where they are. Survivor hits second stage. And Mousy and Spider, not sure what they're doing, but hopefully it's something productive. Otherwise, as you said, this might be a 4K1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at it right now from the standpoint of the time economy that they have allowed themselves. And the issue is that if you let somebody die on hook, obviously that the correct play would be to slam gens. But I do think that the issue with the 70-second hook timer now is that teams are having a bit of a crisis of conscience when it comes to whether they let someone sit on the hook, whether they go to a gen, or how they use that time wisely. It's kind of like procrastinating when you have a homework assignment due 3 week advance and you say to yourself, oh yeah, I could just wait till put it off to the last second. But it doesn't look like they put off to the last second that gen, which is great for them. It does look like it could be a 4K1, but like you said, this is the Demogorgon, this is not the nurse. And speaking of resources, like as I was saying, one of the biggest things I feel like for M1s is to keep track of what pallets are up and what pallets are down. And me personally, I think breaking the down pallets is very important. However, I feel like at the same time too, Gbot feels very comfortable playing around all these resources and pallets that are still up and being able to just make the most of every precious second. And we have Mousy here, Gbot holding himself purpose and taking Mousy's chase all the way around to the bottom mid area. I don't know what is the play right here as far as finding Mousy, because I know Gbot wants to make sure that the other gens aren't being worked on. So it does look like Gbot is gonna go and look at a different gen just to confirm that the gen isn't gonna get completed. But I think Gbot here finds Spider, so I do think it is looking like a 4K1 now, Potato.
Basically, Gbot has, with an eruption on main gen, you have easy 60 seconds, maybe 70 seconds to get one more health state onto the survivor, and Spider trying to add a few more seconds to that timer, but not throwing the pallet. Eruption's going to proc on the main building gen, and instead of hooking your fresh pain res, you see Eruption or reading on to the UE, and Mousy is having a Demogorgon next to them. Thought they would teleport upstairs instead of portaling to behind main building, and yep, because they see the survivor running back down the map towards Shack, and this is looking like a done deal of Vicinal's killer getting what is likely a 4K1. Maybe some fancy hack plays here at the end, getting a few stages out through hack might be the difference, and there's going to be a shred. And hook this one first in case there's flip-flop or something spicy. Gbot with a little bit of a nod there. And hooks Spider, excuse me. Goes back to Mousy, picks up Mousy, that'll be a 4K1. So we're gonna see Arctic Wolves Demogorgon with a 4K1 tie condition. I think it's pretty reasonable for both sides to play around, demo a killer that you can definitely get outs against, but if you get a good 3-gen in certain spots on this map, it can be very scary with good portal placement. But we have a lot of time to talk about it as these survivors just sitting on the hook. So Jukies, what do you think is going to be happening on the second half of the set?
Well, I think the second half of the set is going to be very aggressive, but unfortunately for the other team, excuse me, for Arctic Wolves. The issue is that the builds are already locked in. So even if they were expecting an easier win con, they're gonna have to play around the build instead of making the build around their play. I think we're gonna see a much more aggressive beginning, but at the same time too, what I do also see paid off with Gbot is the way that Gbot places his portals around the map, places that make sense, but then also does it in a way that's so organic. Because again, the number one thing in this game is time economy. People only have so long to place portals or so long to kick ballots or even do gens, and I think that was the biggest issue with Arctic Wolves Survivor gameplay, is that they were indecisive in certain situations rather than just committing when the down happened that they're gonna go slam 3 gens. Either way, that early tag may put them in a position of 4K1. So we're gonna be going on to the second half of this matchup. I'm Def Jukis here with Mega Dirt Potato on the Chainsaw Slaughter. And it's about to get cold and furry in here as we have Arctic Wolves versus Vicinal. We have the part 2 of the round of the Chainsaw Slaughter. So we had Gbot with Vicinal giving Demogorgon a 4K1, and now Arctic Wolves to win has to 4K2. The biggest thing about it is that, like I said in the previous round, is that the builds are locked in before the match starts. So what this means is that Arctic Wolves is going to have to play with really only 3 perks: Corrupt, Pain Res, and Pop. I'm here with Mega Dirt Potato. What are your thoughts so far on the 3 perk handicap?
I think it's definitely a choice. I think if you think things through with that lock-in system, it's easier to have a 4th perk on an easier win con than having to play this harder win con with 3 stages. But Arctic Wolves Killer Siberia, also with the Heart Katy Perry in the name, is making up for that with a good M1 on to Slasher, and it might be able to get this down at the LT wall and gets the hit on the window, saying, I don't care about my Corrupt, who needs perks when you get downs. I'm gonna get the kick here before the Pain Res or the Pop. Just trying to make sure this doesn't fly in their face. And now we'll see where Siberia wants to take this. But locking your builds means you have to put a little bit of different thought in it beforehand. And I think bringing NOED was choice. We do see Gen Pop distance. It's not a Pain Res, but you do have a Pop. And you do also see, hey, look at his Gbot, the killer from the other half of the set. You're gonna pop the gen right next to the hook, and we'll see what kind of playstyle Siberia wants to bring to the table.
I think Siberia has the right idea by switching Pop for Agi, or better to say that instead of Pop, instead of Agi. On a map like this, it is very huge and hook position is very important. Ideally, they probably would have wanted to bring Agi instead of NOED if they could swap out perks. But Siberia using a portal really early here to go down back to the hook. I apologize. Not too early, but the thing about portals is that it seems like the Demogorgon turns into a 3-gen monster when the portals are properly placed and the pressure is there. I think Siberia has the right idea to get this hook right next to the active gen that is regressing. And I think that's what makes Pop and Pain Res still so good, even with the gen kick limit, is really you can split pressure across the entire map with the Demogorgon by using the portal to go place your Pop where you want it to. And if you have a Pain Res on the hook, then you can pressure 2 different gens at once, which it seems like that's what Siberia is doing, going over here to the 11 side to kick the gen and take chase on Bronzy. This tile, Slasher jumped into Siberia's loving arms, and we do have a gen pop over there on the opposite side of the map. So Vicinal is doing a good job splitting gens here.
Yeah, and I think Siberia is thinking about the timings, aware that they can go away from the hook at the kick right after the second stage hits, because they know they shouldn't be farming a teammate. And now they get a hit and to go back to the hook, but an FTP comes through for the people. G-Bot giving up a health state to make sure Slasher can't get absolutely hard tunneled by this demo, because that is what Siberia is trying to do. But sees the injured Jake, can't find the Meg, can't find Slasher, and if your tunnel out goes out the window, that's gonna make it hard to get a 4K1 tie condition. But you still have many options. You have 4 stacks of pain res if you want to try to get G-Bot down for some aggression. Give yourself some time left in this match to try to find your tunnel out again. And now we are looping the tree. This pallet should be going down. Not choosing to shred it. Trying to force a direction. Trying to wait to shred it. Or 50-50 and go back around. You just have to shred it. Not shredding that pallet I said earlier. Breaking those down pallets are important because some of them are very strong, just like that one. And now the down comes all the way across the map with G-Bot doing a good job to stall so long that the broken from FTP is no longer in play. And another gen pops. Is this a pain res? It is, and I think we heard a Renato off in the distance. But what can you do in this situation? You have, what, 3 stages? No tunnel out? Super close to you, and you need to try to get a 4K1 Tycon.
Yeah, it's a bit indecisive sometimes with trying to find a tunnel out, and I think that that's the issue with really that most killers run into, is that I don't know if there was probably about like almost like an 80-60 second window where Siberia was trying to look for the tunnel out Slasher, but part of the skill set the survivors have in comp is being able to stealth out and play the tunnel out perfectly, and now G-Bot is making themselves readily available and understanding that all they have to do is stall out for the Tycon. I think Siberia is a bit aggressive with that shred there, and I feel like the down could have came a lot quicker because of Barb's glasses. And there's the gen right there. Based on how G-Bot is pre-dropping, I think that the last gen is about to get done here just shortly. Siberia was very hesitant with some of these shreds earlier and not hesitant with that M1 around the corner, because I think they really were hoping they could find Slasher immediately to be able to complete the tunnel out. And I don't know if this is the play at this point. I think that Siberia full panic mode, trying to figure out whether they should just take the pickup or if they should try and go for their tunnel out. And I mean, we talked about them only having 3 perks. Do you think a 4th perk could have helped them out in this situation?
I mean, the answer is always. If you're having another perk, it's always going to be advantageous. But the question here is, would it have made a difference if you have something like Ruin, you wouldn't be able to get your pop? If you have something like Agitation, it's just going to be a little bit of quality of life. But is there a perk that's potent enough to help you here? Maybe Bamboozle, as you mentioned last game, but playing a lot of these pallets, not playing too many, not enough of the windows to say Bamboozle would have hard carried. But we see the chase on a G-Bot, no wed procs, last gen is done. That is going to be the win condition here for Vicinal. Nothing that the Arctic Wolves can do to save the win condition, but still going to keep playing for best result. This is still a comp DBD match after all. And that is going to be a down onto Bronzy, as the survivors are aware there's no wed. So we'll see how they respond, if they want to take out, if they want to try anything fancy, but with no wed being between the exit gates. Oh, it gets cleansed. G-Bot goes down for it. G-Bot's hook is a death hook. You can hook this, go back to Bronzy, call it 9 stages. But we'll see if the survivor's going to let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm very much like, we all know how good Vicinal is. We know how good Vicinal and how much experience they have. And so Vicinal is not an easy task for any team to face. The biggest I think that Arctic Wolves had was just the indecisiveness. And I heard a caster once say that when people play Nurse and they start missing their blinks, they call it Nurse nerves. And I don't know if that's necessarily what happened with Siberia with the Demogorgon, but there was an instance, I think right over here by main building, where Siberia held the shred against Gree Zero, and I kind of thought to myself, it looks like they're kind of getting in their own head right now. And I think it's unfortunate, because I do think that they show a lot of skill here, that they're definitely a decent player, I think the issue is that when you have people watching, or you're facing a team that has as much experience as Vicinal does, people tend to doubt themselves. So it's gonna be Vicinal moving on with Arctic Wolves going down cold and furry. We'll be back with the next round of Chainsaw Slaughter right after this.